more than 30 minutes after leaving the pier, the Vinh Xanh 58 tourist boat, registration number QN7105, had just passed the coastal waters near Ha Long International Port when the sky suddenly changed color. A violent squall from offshore swept across the once calm sea. No warning siren sounded, and no emergency signal was issued. In a situation that left almost no room for maneuver, the boat was violently tilted by the wind and then completely capsized, throwing nearly 50 people into the stormy sea. In just a matter of seconds, a summer sightseeing trip turned into a desperate search for life amidst the cold ocean. At 12:35 p.m. on May 19, 2025, at Ha Long International Cruise Port in Ha Long City, Quang Ninh Province. Ha Long International Cruise Port, also known as Sun Port, is one of the most modern cruise terminals in the coastal city of Quang Ninh, located right in the heart of the bustling Bai Chai tourist area. Amid the lively atmosphere of the peak travel season, 46 tourists boarded the Vinh Xanh 58 cruise boat, registration number QN7105. They were preparing for a journey to explore the legendary Ha Long Bay. The passengers came from various age groups, including small groups and families with as many as 21 children on board. The youngest was born in 2023, while most of the others were elderly. The ill-fated boat was a 2-deck wooden cruise vessel with a steel hull measuring 24 meters in length and weighing 12 tons, with a maximum capacity of 49 passengers. It was fully equipped with safety gear in accordance with regulations, including personal life jackets for all passengers, round life buoys, and emergency escape equipment. The vessel was newly built in 2015 and is owned by Vinh Xanh Transport and Tourism Co. As of the time of the incident, the boat still had a valid inspection certificate, effective until June 2026, and met all legal requirements for operating tourist routes on Ha Long Bay. The Vinh Xanh 58 was powered by an inland diesel engine generating thrust through a single propeller located at the stern. The steering system operated on a traditional manual mechanism, with a wheel connected to a rudder positioned beneath the hull. This is a common design among coastal cruise boats, providing stability under normal conditions. The cruising speed of the boat was relatively low, about 10 kilometers per hour, suitable for sightseeing and ensuring passenger safety. In terms of navigation and communication, the boat was basically equipped with a magnetic compass, several handheld positioning devices, and a VHF radio for maintaining contact with port authorities or other vessels in the operating area. However, the boat was not equipped with radar or an autopilot system, making it entirely dependent on the captain's
observational skills and real-time responses in all situations. In addition, QN7105 was equipped with a GPS system for positioning and route tracking. According to the planned itinerary, the journey would depart from Ha Long International Cruise Port, taking tourists to visit popular destinations such as Sung Sot Cave and T-Top Island before returning to the port in the late afternoon. The trip was operated by 3 crew members, with the captain and owner of the boat being Mr. Doan Van Trin, 50 years old. Under the supervision of the Ha Long International Port Authority, all trips were required to complete route reporting procedures, conduct safety equipment checks, and were only permitted to depart when weather conditions were deemed safe. At 12:55 p.m., the Vinh Xanh 58 officially left the pier. At the time of departure, the weather was mildly sunny, the sea was calm, and no hazardous weather warnings had been issued. However, just over 30 minutes into the voyage, the first unusual signs appeared. Around 1:30 p.m., when the boat had traveled approximately 4 kilometers near the Hondal Go area, the previously clear sky suddenly turned dark gray. A thunderstorm swept in, strong gusts of wind began to blow, and heavy rain poured down, with rainwater even splashing into the cabin. The boat began to rock violently with each wave, at times tilting more than 40 degrees, causing many passengers to panic.
Some passengers expressed concern and requested the captain to turn back to port. However, as the boat was in a wave-lifting state, the captain, who was also the owner, reassured the passengers, urging them to stay calm and wait, explaining that the boat needed to move into the mountain passage ahead to find shelter from the wind before it could safely turn around. However, the situation quickly took a turn for the worse. The waves grew stronger by the minute, gusts of wind battered the vessel violently, and the torrential rain reduced visibility to nearly zero. The boat tilted noticeably with every wave that struck its hull. The entire space was engulfed by the howling wind, crashing waves, screaming voices, and the deafening sound of water pouring in. Panic began to spread as the vessel gradually lost control. People were thrown to one side, frantically reaching under the seats for life jackets and hastily putting them on amid the chaos. But with wind speeds reaching level 7, approximately 60 kilometers per hour, the boat became increasingly unstable, leaning heavily to the right before suddenly capsizing completely in less than 10 minutes after the storm first appeared. All passengers and crew members were thrown into the sea amidst rough waves, fierce winds, and heavy rain. At the moment the boat capsized, seawater rushed into the cabin with terrifying force and speed. Crew member Vu Ang Tu tried to remain calm in the chaos. His arm was scraped and bleeding, but without time to think, he immediately dove into the freezing water in search of an escape. In the thick darkness beneath the surface, all sense of direction was lost. Only when he noticed a faint glimmer of light above did he muster the strength to swim upward and break the surface. Fortunately, upon surfacing, he grabbed hold of a drifting wooden seat, desperately clinging to it. As he caught his breath, he realized he had been swept away by the current, now several hundred meters from the overturned vessel, in the middle of the churning sea.
At the same time, passenger Dang Ang Tuan also risked his life by diving underwater twice in search of an escape route. Following a faint glimmer of light, he was fortunate enough to find his way out of the cabin. Although his foot was cut by broken glass, he, along with a few others, went back to search for those still trapped inside. He managed to pull 4 people out, but sadly, 2 of them did not survive. In the same stormy sea that day, Nguyen Van Quan and 3 other men struggled to survive by clinging to a floating wooden seat. They tried desperately to swim toward the shore, but amid the crashing waves and driving rain, one man let go and was lost due to exhaustion. The remaining 3 swam toward the shipping lane, hoping to encounter a passing fishing boat. One female passenger managed to crawl into the engine compartment, where a small air pocket remained after the boat capsized. From there, she swam out and returned multiple times, trying to help others still trapped inside find a way to escape. However, by her 3rd return, the cabin had completely flooded, and she could no longer gain access. Amid the vast open sea, she also attempted to save an elderly man who was semi-conscious. She shouted repeatedly, urging him to breathe deeply, wear his life jacket, and keep his head above water. Despite her efforts, the man was unable to breathe on his own. Eventually, she and the others were forced to tie him to a rope to keep his body afloat, waiting for rescue forces to arrive.
At 2:05 p.m., The final GPS signal from the Vinh Xanh 58 disappeared completely. In the vast expanse of open sea, amid a sudden squall, nearly 50 people were thrown into the water without a single moment to react. By 3:30 p.m., the Quang Ninh Provincial Border Guard received the first confirmed report of the boat accident and immediately dispatched 2 ships, 2 rescue boats, and 22 officers to the scene. Due to the extremely serious nature of the incident, the provincial authorities mobilized all available forces, including border guards, Navy, Coast Guard, police, and port authorities, totaling around 1,000 personnel and over 100 vehicles. Additionally, they called for assistance from more than 500 local residents to join the search and rescue efforts. Within just 10 minutes, the first rescue boats cut through the waves and rushed toward the location identified as the Capsizing site, more than 3 nautical miles, nearly 6 kilometers from shore. Braving the storm, high waves, and limited visibility, rescue forces reached the scene in a state of emergency. The first 7 people were pulled from the sea, most of them suffering from water inhalation, hypothermia, and extreme panic. Most survivors could not fully recount what had happened. Everything occurred too quickly, too suddenly, and without any warning. There was no alarm, no evacuation instructions, and many didn't even have time to put on life jackets before the boat capsized. On the night of May 19th, rescue teams simultaneously launched various search methods, including seabed sonar scanning, deep diving along the currents, and net sweeping around the vessel's wreck. The diving teams consisted mainly of professional military divers working in coordination with experienced local fishermen. They were divided into small rotating crews, working overnight, clinging to each coordinate point beneath the cold and dark water.
By the early morning of May 20, the bodies of 18 victims had been recovered and brought ashore. However, the death toll continued to rise rapidly throughout the day. As of May 24, 38 people had been confirmed dead, 10 survived, and 1 person remained missing. The initial cause of the accident and the immediate questions that followed shocked the entire country. A series of pressing concerns were raised. Why was the boat allowed to depart? Why didn't anyone jump into the water when the vessel started tilting? Was it overloaded? Was the rescue operation delayed? And most importantly, who, if anyone, would be held accountable? However, preliminary analyses and meteorological data indicated that this was an extreme weather event that occurred too quickly, beyond the forecasting capabilities at that time. According to the National Center for Hydrometeorological Forecasting, on May 19, a strong convective cloud band had formed over the Ha Long Bay area, triggering a sudden local squall, with wind speeds reaching levels 7 to 8, approximately 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. This type of weather phenomenon typically develops and dissipates rapidly, making it very difficult to detect early using conventional forecasting models. The official marine weather warning was only issued at 1:30 p.m., while the Vinh Xanh 58 had already departed at 12:55 p.m. This meant there were less than 40 minutes between departure and the onset of severe weather conditions. On the other hand, according to its inspection records, the Vinh Xanh 58 was operating in full compliance with regulations, with a maximum allowed capacity of 48 passengers, matching the number of people aboard at the time of the incident. There was no indication of overloading. At the time of departure, there was no ban on setting sail, nor had any dangerous weather warnings been issued. In fact, Tropical Storm number 3 was still over 1,000 kilometers east of Ha Long Bay at that time and posed no direct threat to the area. However, just 35 minutes later, around 1:30 p.m., a sudden localized squall developed, bringing heavy rain and strong gusts of wind at levels 7 to 8, equivalent to 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. This type of weather phenomenon typically develops and dissipates rapidly, making it very difficult to detect early using conventional forecasting models.
The official marine weather warning was only issued at 1:30 p.m., while the Vinh Xanh 58 had already departed at 12:55 p.m. This meant there were less than 40 minutes between departure and the onset of severe weather conditions. On the other hand, according to its inspection records, the Vinh Xanh 58 was operating in full compliance with regulations, with a maximum allowed capacity of 48 passengers, matching the number of people aboard at the time of the incident. However, just 35 minutes later, around 1:30 p.m., a sudden localized squall developed, bringing heavy rain and strong gusts of wind at levels 7 to 8, equivalent to 50 to 60 kilometers per hour. This type of weather phenomenon typically develops and dissipates rapidly, making it very difficult to detect early using conventional forecasting models. The official marine weather warning was only issued at 1:30 p.m., while the Vinh Xanh 58 had already departed at 12:55 p.m. This meant there were less than 40 minutes between departure and the onset of severe weather conditions.
Regarding the question of why people didn't jump when the boat tilted, while it may sound reasonable at first, the reality was far more complex. At the moment of capsizing, the entire event unfolded in just a few seconds. Many passengers were thrown around, stunned and panicked, especially young children and the elderly. Some had run into the cabin to seek shelter from the rain and became trapped when the vessel suddenly overturned. Even those who could swim were unable to find an escape route in the chaos of violent rain, strong winds, poor visibility, and disorientation. As for the rescue efforts, there were no signs of delay. Around 15 minutes after the boat capsized, hail and strong winds persisted until about 3 p.m., which contributed to a delay in reporting the incident. However, within just 10 minutes of receiving the alert, border guards, naval forces, police, and local fishermen had already launched their rescue missions. Without waiting for formal approvals, rescue teams headed out to sea in rough conditions with a singular goal: to find survivors as quickly as possible. The boat was equipped with life jackets, but passengers were not required to wear them before departure, and no evacuation instructions were given. According to regulations, wearing life jackets is only mandatory for cross-river passenger routes. For tourist boats like Vinh Xanh 58, life jackets are not required to be worn unless an emergency arises. Considering all the available facts, this incident was not the result of negligence, regulatory violations, or lack of responsibility. It was an unforeseeable accident caused by a sudden and extreme shift in weather beyond the limits of human forecasting capabilities and immediate response capabilities. The Vinh Xanh 58 tragedy stands as a painful reminder of nature's harshness and the critical importance of prioritizing safety above all else. It raises serious questions about improving the accuracy of localized weather forecasting, as well as enhancing emergency alert systems and response protocols for maritime tourism, so that every journey to discover the beauty of our country remains one of joy, not of sorrow.